is what I'll be focusing on. So to start off with, I'm sure these statistics many of you would have seen, they get thrown around quite a lot. Equifax, I'm sure everybody heard about Equifax recently, right? 2 weeks ago. One of the largest breaches in the recent times, as recent as a month ago. The challenge is this: most organizations, right, take a huge amount of time in detecting threats. And why is that? One of the reasons why threats are so difficult to identify. One, they're difficult to identify. Second, once you've identified it, you really don't know what to do with it. One of the key challenges in identifying threats is the fact that we are generating more data than we can consume. I mean, I think we passed that rate, that limit long ago, and now it's just getting out of hands. 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. I really don't know how many zeros that are, right? And the fact is, 80% of this data, 80% of this is not machine readable or not machine consumable, and that is the problem. Human beings can't read all this data. Human beings can't consume all this data. If you want to be really, really good at solving your security problems, this is the data that you need to consume. This is the data that you need to understand to kind of address the challenges. So just look at the number of vulnerabilities that are published. Most of these vulnerabilities are documents. They are not databases. They are not IP address list sort of things, which, let's say, Curator, an SIEM can consume and act upon. A firewall can consume and act upon, right? And that's the reason most of the times they get messed up. Thousands of reports every month, thousands of blogs every month. So unless we can somehow manage to train our machines to be able to read documents and do things, that's what we need right now. And that's what really Watson is. How many of you know about the Watson, as in the Watson that was a few years ago in the news for beating human beings at a game which was all about understanding the English language? Anybody heard about Jeopardy? Yeah, I mean, you can go to YouTube and look for it. You can go to Google for look for it. To really, really simply put it, Watson as a platform can understand English. It can do natural language understanding NLU. It can read a sentence and actually make sense of what it says. Right? Today, if you look at any platform, any security platform, it's crunching numbers. It's looking at IP addresses, it's looking at signatures, it's looking at things which a machine can understand, but not understand really. A machine can just pattern match with something, right? The challenge is, if you want to address security, the biggest challenge is going to be there is 80% of data out there which is not addressable by these platforms, by these solutions, right? Antivirus is very good example. Firewalls, very good example. All they can do is look at a bunch of numbers, compare it, and see if it's happening somewhere else. That's all that they can do, right? In fact, if you walk, I'm sure all of you have walked around the booths here. All vendors, including IBM, one of the big focus is how to generate more alerts, how to find more incidents in your organization. The problem is, when you have generated these alerts and these incidents and these offenses, you need human beings to address them. You need human beings to have a look at them, figure out, are they real? Do I really need to do something about it? Or can we just let it go? False positives, trust me, tell a SOC manager what false positives is, that's a nightmare. Out of the thousands of alerts generated every day, depending on the size of the organization, of course, but let's say a mid-sized organization, about 10,000 alerts per day, probably one of them is real. Probably one of them is what they really need to pay attention to, right? And that's where Watson helps us. And that's where we are leveraging Watson. So we have been leveraging Watson. We have developed industry solutions for Watson. So medical, a lot of people would have heard about Watson being used in oncology and stuff. Watson being used in banking and financial services. And this is Watson for cybersecurity, right? Partnered with 10 universities worldwide. And these universities and IBM and people like myself and Barney, we are actually training Watson to understand what it means to be a malware. So when I say a malware, for a firewall, it's a bunch of bytes, it's a pattern of bytes. For an antivirus, it's a hash value. For an operating system, it's a file executable. But what does any of this mean? None of those guys know. If I were to put a normal file with a name which matches a malware, the antivirus will quit. That's not what we want, right? And that's where Watson, as I said, comes in, because Watson actually understands if it's a file with a certain hash and it behaves in a certain way and it does X, Y, Z things, and if some people have already seen it in the past, this is what it might be doing, right? And I'll show you a quick demonstration of how exactly this maps to what we do in cybersecurity. Offenses that my manager has assigned to me to evaluate for the day. And as you can see, there are only 7 of them, because that's what I will get. I'll probably need 1 hour for every single offense to evaluate. And that 1 hour is just to do a fact check, right? If I really have to deep dive, it's going to take me days, right? Now, I'm going to pick one of them, and as I said, the example where if you see this magnitude here, and here it says this is not a big, the magnitude, I mean, it's not a big issue, right? This is what the SOC solutions, all the various solutions out there collaborating together with the SIM, the Kubernetes SIM, in this case is telling me. I'm going to open this this offense and actually see what it has to say here, right? Now, this is exactly what I face day in and day out. This is what a human being faces day in and day out. You have to actually go through all of this and see if it really makes sense. Of course, I spent time going through this, so I'm going to tell you exactly what this is. So what's happened here? The sequence of events that has happened here is this. One of the employees in my organization, Lance has received an email. Okay? The spam filter thinks it's a spam. So it just alerted me that, hey, there's a spam coming through. Lance has received the email, but for some reason he has chosen not to ignore it. It's gone to spam folder, but he has still opened it for whatever reason. Right? Probably it has a catchy phrase in it. I don't know. Probably his spam folder is for whatever reason merged with every cost. And he's opened the mail. There's a link in the mail. He has clicked on it. When he clicks on it, the firewall basically comes. Blue code in this case has actually identified that this link could be potentially dangerous. So it's given a red flag, but Lance has still gone ahead and said, no, I still want to see this executable. I still want to see what the link is. He has finally managed to download that executable and run it. Now here, of course, the antivirus kicks in and says, you know what? I am not going to allow this executable to run. So still at the end of the whole sequence of events, the organization is supposedly safe. Now, as an analyst, when I go through all of this, I'll see, okay, the problem has been taken care of. Do I really need to worry about it? Probably not. Let me just close the incident and go ahead. Right? That's what I would normally do in a normal scenario. Now, you're talking of an L1 operator who's probably just out of college, spent like 3 months just understanding what the tool looks like, and now suddenly become a security expert, making a decision, what should be done with this. This is real life. This is what happens. In fact, in one of the slides, if you notice, we will be short of like 1.5 million jobs in the next 3 years. The number has, by the way, been updated to 2 million. So all of us, our jobs are safe. That's the good news of it, right? So going back, the L1 stock operator, this is the challenge that the operator faces, right? This is the challenge that most organizations face, right? So let me now do this. I'm going to submit this incident. I'm going to tell Watson to have a look at this incident, right? Watson is going to do this for me. Now I have installed Watson as an application here. So Watson, for whoever is an existing QRadar customer, Watson is available on the App Store. You can actually download and run the app, the Watson agent, on the QRadar box, and you can actually evaluate it for 30 days for free. So you can actually see for yourself how good it works. So now, this is actually the Watson application showing you, and for some reason the screen is cutting out. But that button there says basically investigated. So I'm actually going to view it as to what Watson has found for me. Is this readable? This actually is the Watson analysis that we. So this is actually what Watson has done and found out for me. So if you notice here, what Watson has said, and this is the more interesting part, it actually clearly says that this looks like an APT attack. Now this is very, very interesting. If you remember, I showed you the number 201 days to figure out you have been breached. The reason is this. Your systems might have generated hundreds of these events over the period of 200 days. Most of the time, you would have just closed it saying, hey, it's not a problem. Right? APTs are called APTs because there will be tons of unsuccessful attempts and they will still keep trying and they will break in. Right? So just as a quick, what Watson here is concluding for you is that this incident itself is probably not an issue, but you should not be taking it lightly. You probably need to go back, look into your environment if it's already been breached by the Cozy guys, or you might want to strengthen your defenses because they are definitely going to try back in the future. So this is attribution, right? And let me actually show you what Watson does. Watson shows you the thinking process that it has employed to get here. So if you are an L1 SOC operator, you actually can learn from Watson as to how to go about analyzing a security incident. So this is the nice knowledge graph that Watson has built for us. And if you notice, this is the offending employee, the guy with the icon in yellow. And looking at the various parameters, it has all the variants here and figured out that this looks like a Cozy Duke attack. Now, how has it concluded that it's a Cozy Duke attack? It gives you the evidence. It actually tells you why it is so. And if you notice here, I'm not sure if it is clear, let me quickly put it up for you. So what Watson has actually done is, I told you about So I've told you about the collaboration that we had with universities and the ourselves. We actually curate information to teach Watson. So what we have told Watson is, blogs that appear on this website, you should see them, you should think of them as genuine ones, and you should actually read and understand what they say. So what Watson has done is, Watson has actually looked about, read about Cozy Duke on this blog, and see the behavior there, and the linkages with what's actually happened inside the organization, it has come to this conclusion. Now, if I were a SOC analyst, and if I were to reach this conclusion, I will probably have had to already read most of the blogs on that website, one, probably have had to remember it, or have to be like exceedingly lucky in my Google skills, or good at my Google skills, that I land up there. All those scenarios is going to take me days to get there.